Hello, this is JOMAJ Studios and this is our original action fantasy adventure called The Fall of Nale, Episode 7. 2 hours later, Jacob and Nathaniel had resumed their search for a way through the forest. "I'm hungry. A whole day has passed since we had anything to eat," complained the knight as he walked behind his comrade. "It's strange, but in this area of the forest, the trees don't seem to be bearing any fruit," observed Jacob calmly. Suddenly, a teenage boy, looking no older than 18, leaped out of the bushes in a panic. "Hey, what's the problem?" asked the knight as he caught the black-haired and brown-eyed boy, who was by now trying to run with no sense of direction. "It's right behind me!" cried out the boy. Then came a loud series of thud sounds that vibrated the whole area, making it very clear something very large was heading in their direction. Suddenly, a large green ogre leaped out of the bushes and threw a punch in the direction of the trio of young men, who in turn dispersed and avoided the attempted assault. Nathaniel drew his sword as he rose to his feet, preparing himself for battle. But the ogre for some reason was moving towards the defenseless boy, now stricken by fear. As a freak of nature made a move to crush the boy, Jacob leaped in front of him and began to strike the ogre continuously with his staff. The ogre, unable to withstand the force of Jacob's enchanted weapon, ran off into the forest. "Thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done if you weren't here to rescue me," said the boy as he shook Jacob's hand frantically. "Why was that thing after you?" asked Nathaniel, approaching the boy as he put away his swords. "These are dangerous woods. Wild beasts like that are all over the place," said the boy, attempting to brush aside the question. "Be it as it may, ogres don't attack unless provoked," pointed out Jacob, now becoming suspicious of the young man. "Okay, my name is Crichton, and have ventured into these woods as an explorer. As an explorer, I go out of my way to catalog everything I've seen with some sort of specimen," explained Crichton, then going into his pouch. "See, I have collected some grass from the Eternal Garden, the tooth of a molex, the claw of a kazar. Let me guess, you disturbed the ogre's slumber while trying to collect a sample from it," interrupted Jacob. "All I wanted was a little sample from it. I wasn't going to hurt it," pointed out the boy. Jacob then brought out a pin on him and pricked the boy with it. "Ow! What was that for?" asked Cranton, rather confused by Jacob's actions. "Just checking if you were possessed, cursed, or a spawn of evil in disguise. They usually lack the ability to stay hidden when you make them draw blood," explained Jacob casually. "Do you know a way around these forests?" asked Nathaniel. "Like the back of my hand," bragged Crichton. "Good, because we're trying to find the right path that will lead us to the dark regions," informed Jacob. "Why the hell would you want to go there?" asked Crichton. "That is no concern of yours," responded Nathaniel. "Okay, if you say so, follow me," said Crichton, not at all ready to argue with the strong-looking knight. The young explorer led the warriors deep into the forest until they came to a weak-looking bridge, which crossed over a waterfall into some more forest area. "Here you go. Cross over this here bridge, follow the path straight down until you come to a large volcano. Get around the volcano and walk straight for about 10 miles. You will then come to a harbor where you should be able to get a boat ride to the dark regions," directed Crichton. "Wait, why aren't you leading us through the forest?" asked Nathaniel, bit curious as to why the young explorer seemed eager to send them off on their way. "That part of the forest is a place where even I fear to venture. Too many of the creatures that dwell there have been touched by evil sorcery," explained Crichton. "We understand. Thank you for your help," said Jacob. "Hey, before you go, tell us where we can get some food," requested the knight. "As you enter that area of the forest, you should come to a tree bearing many ripe and delicious fruits," said Crichton as he walked off to resume his exploring. The warriors took Crichton's advice and walked across the bridge. As they entered into the forest area Crichton feared, they came upon the tree the young explorer had spoken of, said Nathaniel as he approached a large tree that towered more than 100 feet above them. The tree, looking like it had been standing for generations, bore ripe fruits like pears, bananas, and apples. Jacob, who was astonished at the ability of the tree to bear such a wide variety of fruits at the same time, approached it. But before the noble warrior could get within 2 meters of the tree, he stepped into a trap that strung him upside down at the top of the tree. By sheer reflex, Nathaniel burst out into laughter as he found Jacob's predicament amusing. "Could I get some help here?" yelled out Jacob, able to hear his comrade's laughter from the top of the tree. Nathaniel could only signal his willingness to assist with a wave of his hand, for he was still overcome with laughter. Suddenly, without warning, a large brown horse-like beast that stood like a well-built man leaped out of the bushes. The creature grabbed hold of the unprepared knight and flung him into a nearby tree. The monstrous-looking beast then attempted to scatter Nathaniel's skull with one powerful blow, but the young knight recovered quickly and moved out of the way, causing the beast to make a hole in the tree instead. Nathaniel, now only having time to rely on his freakish brute strength, retaliated and struck the beast across the face with both his right and left fist. He then knocked the beast off balance with a jumping front kick. As the horse creature fell to the ground, a mutant ram, also touched by evil sorcery, savagely ran out of the bushes and charged at the knight. He blocked the impact of the ram's horns with his shield, but was still pushed up against the tree. Meanwhile, high up in the tree, Jacob still hung helplessly upside down, when suddenly he noticed an 8-foot demonic squirrel moving towards him from below. Acting quickly, the noble warrior took hold of his boomerang and cut the rope stringing him up by the leg, causing him to free fall down the tree. After falling about 12 feet, Jacob caught hold of a branch and swung around it like a professional gymnast until he finally gained enough momentum to propel himself up into the air, enabling him to land feet first on a strong branch that was about 6 feet above him. On a branch opposite him, he sighted a giant blue ape-like beast with large red eyes and razor-sharp teeth. The ape, sighting Jacob, made a jump at him. Acting only by reflex, Jacob leaped off the ape creature's head while the beast was still in mid-air and grabbed hold of a branch that was just above him. He then used the branch to propel himself into the air and move another level up the tree away from the ape-like creature, only to face a giant 30-foot-long cobra. The demonic snake attempted to take a bite out of the young warrior, who avoided the attack by staggering back and falling off the branch. By regaining control in mid-air with a well-executed somersault, Jacob managed to land on a branch about 70 feet away from the ground, only to avoid attacks from the demonic squirrel creature that had first begun to approach him earlier on. As Jacob leaped and ducked out of harm's way, he noticed the monstrous ape advancing towards his area. As Jacob spun over the squirrel in mid-air, the noble warrior flung his boomerang in the direction of the ape monster. But the boomerang didn't hit the creature, instead it hit the branch it was standing on. This caused the monstrous ape to plummet around 80 feet and land on top of the demonic ram holding Nathaniel against the tree. Once free, the knight released the wrath of his blade on all the mutants around him. As Jacob caught his boomerang in mid-air, the giant cobra shot towards his area with a violent attack. But instead of hurting Jacob, it snapped the branch he and the demonic squirrel were battling on. The noble warrior and his demonic foe began to fall fast towards the hard ground. The demonic squirrel faced its demise as it broke Jacob's fall. As Nathaniel helped his slightly disorientated comrade to his feet, the giant cobra in one swift movement made its way down the tree and confronted the young warriors. Assuming at that moment the giant snake was their only problem, Jacob and Nathaniel readied their weapons. The cobra shot at the young men in an effort to shred them with its teeth. The warriors reacted quickly and managed to jump out of the way. Jacob suddenly found himself under attack by a giant black gremlin and a giant brown demonic hedgehog. Jacob, showing no mercy, defended himself with the full extension of his staff. Both creatures attempting to surround the noble warrior found themselves getting struck continuously. Meanwhile, just a couple of meters away, Nathaniel was left to face the giant cobra alone. The monster, taking the knight by surprise, swung its tail in his direction. Nathaniel, who was just about able to block the attack with his shield, was still thrown several meters into a nearby tree. The snake, aiming to finish the young knight off, thrust himself at him. Nathaniel reacted by lunging towards the monster with his sword leading. This caused the knight to drive the blade of his sword deep into the head of the giant monster, which in turn died instantly. At this time, Jacob had struck the giant gremlin so hard he broke his neck, and the demonic hedgehog had begun to flee. Unfortunately for the mutant, it fled towards Nathaniel, who wasted no time in slicing it in two with one swing of his sword. Before the young warriors could catch their breath, scores of hungry, flesh-eating wolves with red glowing eyes began leaping out of the forest area around them. "Run!" cried out Jacob. Both men took to their heels and began to move further into the woods. Both warriors, too eager to avoid a merciless attack from the flesh-tearing pack of wolves, unwittingly fell into a giant pool of green slime. "No fruits? I guess we'll have to make do with dog meat," said Nathaniel. With slime up to their knees, both warriors saw running any further as a futile attempt to escape, so instead prepared to defend themselves against the hungry pursuers. But as the wolves approached the pool, they for some reason did a U-turn and ran off. Both warriors, at first confused, turn around only to find themselves face to face with more than a dozen giant maggots towering over them. The maggots attack viciously, provoking Jacob to release a fury embedded by his need to survive and keep the promise he made to his one true love. Both he and the knight displayed an unprecedented level of combat skills as they fought their way through a dozen of giant bloodthirsty maggots. Then, surprisingly, in the heat of battle, the warriors noticed that the disease-infested attackers suddenly began to back off slowly. The warriors, still expecting another wave of attack from the giant maggots, slowly walked backwards, facing the foes as they moved out of the pool of slime. Suddenly, out of the sky flew a swarm of giant flies with razor-sharp wings that cut through the trees as they flew towards the warriors. Needing no signal, both warriors began to run as fast as they possibly could through the forest as the giant insects pursued them with extreme aggression. While thinking only of preserving their well-being, both men unwittingly fell down a narrow path away from the flies' threats. Both warriors then ended up in a secluded-looking area of the forest in front of a giant tarantula spider. The spider spat out a moist substance that Nathaniel in turn blocked with his shield, while Jacob, still very fired up, leaped into the air and drove his staff into the back of the giant monster. As the noble warrior's attack immobilized the eight-legged foe, all the plant life around them began to attack. The two warriors attempted to defend themselves but ended up getting thrown into a nearby shallow swamp. Now covered in all sorts of dirt and slime, both men got to their feet in the middle of the swamp. A gigantic swamp creature resembling a giant leech emerged out from the swamp, giving out a large screeching sound. Both warriors gave out loud yells as they passionately embraced the option of fighting to survive. After 8 well-placed strikes from Nathaniel's enchanted sword, the swamp beast was no more. With the intensity of the last few battles showing all over them, Jacob and Nathaniel crawled out of the swamp, almost on the verge of exhaustion. As they attempted to have a short rest before getting to their feet, a being made out of the forest soil slowly emerged out of the ground. Both warriors readied their weapons as they slowly got off their hands and knees, while the being morphed into a bald, heavily built man with ebony-colored skin, clothed only with the earth he came out of. It was the hazelite of earth, and it had come to do what the wind hazelite couldn't. The spawn of Aiden's sorcery, with the use of telekinesis, uprooted a tree beside it and shattered the tree into thousands of wooden spikes no taller than an inch and shot them all at the Nale warriors. "Get behind me!" cried out Nathaniel as he made use of his shield. As the knight's shield fended off the wooden spikes, Nathaniel and Jacob, behind the shield, charged straight at the hazelite and rammed it to the ground. As the hazelite hit the ground and the spikes stopped flying, Jacob leaped over Nathaniel to strike with his staff the knockdown demonic being. The hazelite rolled out of the way of Jacob's attack and flipped to its feet, but Jacob had already mapped the being's movement and swept its feet off the ground with his staff. Nathaniel moved to finish off the demonic being as its back touched the ground, but a 5-foot cuboid made out of solid stone, courtesy of the earth hazelite, shot out from the ground beneath him and hit the knight's sword out of his hand. 2 giant fists made out of stone burst out of the ground and struck both warriors. Jacob, jumping back to his feet almost instantly, engaged the hazelites in hand-to-hand combat. The hazelites, under no strain at all, easily matched Jacob's superb combat skills. Jacob took a chance and attempted to move into his opponents with a powerful palm strike. The hazelites skillfully spun out of Jacob's range to avoid the attack and ended up in Nathaniel's area. The knight, who had now regained possession of his sword, swung an attack at the demonic being. The hazelight moved quickly and avoided death. The attack, however, cut off its right hand. The hazelight, with its powers, immediately replaced its hand with one made out of solid concrete and used it to knock Nathaniel into a nearby tree. Jacob responded to the assault on his comrade by shattering the being's hand with his enchanted staff and then knocking it down with a double kick to the face, which he executed with the support of his staff. Before the hazelight could get up, Jacob struck it hard on the head with his enchanted weapon. Then, Nathaniel, now fully recovered, drove the blade of his enchanted sword into the chest of the hazelight, which ended its threat instantly. As the hazelight became dust and flew off with the wind, its evil magic over the plant and animals of the Colithian forest dissolved. The trees around the warriors began bearing ripe fruits at an incredible speed. After their experience in the forest, the warriors, despite being wary, picked as many fruits as they could travel with as they journeyed on. That is the end of episode 7, but before we go, answer this episode's question. If Crichton is a Christian, is he wrong for not escorting Nathaniel and Jacob through the dangerous area of the forest? Refer to the Bible and give your answers via any of JOMAJ Studios' social media platform links, which can be found at jomajstudios.com. Like Water The Next Age is now available on paperback and in ebook format via any Kindle device. Also, check out the JOMAJ Studio website, Twitter page, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube channel for the complete Like Water series and all other JOMAJ Studio features.